Hello, and welcome to Day 5 of the 48th International Toronto Film Festival. I'm Kelly Boutsalis, the Canadian film programmer, and it is my pleasure to introduce the world premiere of Poolman. This is the directorial debut of Chris Pine and is playing in our special presentations program, in which you can find films from notable directors telling stories of larger than usual scope and scale. We would like to thank our lead sponsor, Bell, and our major sponsors, RBC, Bulgaria, and Visa, for their continued support. We would also like to thank our government supporters, the Government of Ontario, Telefilm Canada, and the City of Toronto. This film is eligible for the People's Choice Award. Vote for your favorite films at tiff.net/vote. I do have a note. Unfortunately, due to a technical issue, it will be the DCP version and not the 35 millimeter, but I do have some good news, so stay with me. I still have to thank Paramount Pictures and AGC International and CAA Media Finance for providing us with this film. So we do have a guest here. We have Stacey Sher, the executive producer of Poolman, who is an incredible producer, and her producing credits include some titles you may know: the Oscar-nominated Erin Brockovich, Django Unchained, and Pulp Fiction. Here's Stacey.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you to everyone at TIFF. It's so great to be here. I love this festival. I think this festival has the best audiences, so it's a great honor to bring the film here. So I'm really nervous because I don't do this, and I really want to thank Stuart Ford and AGC for financing this film and letting us make it. They're incredible. Everyone who works with them are amazing. So we wanted you to see the film in 35 tonight. Didn't work. We were going to be the first film projected on 35 since 2015 at the festival. It's still a gorgeous print, and we're really excited to share it with you. Unfortunately, because of the SAG and WGA strike, our incredible cast and our fearless leader, Chris Pine, couldn't be here tonight. But we have Murderer's Row of actors for you. We have Chris. We have Danny DeVito, Annette Bening, Jennifer Jason Leigh, DeWanda Wise, and John Ortiz. And Chris wishes he could be here and is an actor. And though directing and producing, he comes from a long line of actors. And his character, who you'll get to know tonight, who's kind of a big-hearted Ted Lasso sort of non-cynical kind of guy, probably would be on the lines, making sure that everyone was staying well hydrated. So this film is a love letter to Los Angeles and to people that come there with dreams that don't always happen. And though we all know Chris as this gigantic star, this film is his statement on what it's like to grow up in a family of working actors and grow up among dreamers. And the respect that he has for everybody that does it. It's also a love letter to the city of Los Angeles and the way things kind of are constantly changing there when we probably should keep our history alive a little bit. The script started as this character that he and Patty Jenkins, one of my fellow producers, they started riffing on when they were making Wonder Woman 1984. And he sort of followed that character with his writing and producing partner, Ian Gottler, who I also produced the film with. And that led to what we are here today. It's joyful. I hope everybody left their cynicism at the door because it's fun. And I hope you guys have a great time tonight. We also have some of our amazing crew here. And obviously the strikes are not just affecting SAG and WGA members, they're affecting everybody, and they're affecting our brothers and sisters in the IA and the Teamsters and every one of the unions that make films. So our amazing production designer, Erin McGill, is here. Our associate producer, Taylor Backin's here. The film was shot in 35 by Matt Jensen. The costumes were done by the fabulous Cindy Evans, and the film was edited by Stacey Schroeder. So thank you so much, and without... Oh my God, you guys, that's so great. I didn't know.
Artists.
Makeup and hair, we had the best makeup and hair team. So excited that you guys are here. Thank you. All right. Well, this is why I don't do this, you guys. Really, I'm sorry. So without further ado, thrilled for you guys to take a look at Poolman, the world premiere of Poolman.
Hello, thank you for sticking around. My name is Marcus Shody. I'm part of the programming team. Please welcome back Stacey Sher, producer.
Thanks, guys. I know it's late. Thanks for hanging.
So, Stacey, we're going to take some audience questions if anyone has any. But I wanted to start off by talking to you. This is quite an amazing production. What was the genesis of it? How did this project start?
Well, like I was telling you guys earlier, Chris and Patty Jenkins started riffing on this character of Darren Barronman when they were working on Wonder Woman 1984. And then it just sort of took hold on this idea of a person who really wants to make the world a better place and to not be cynical about that. And then he and his writing partner, Ian Gottler, started working together, and it was part Chinatown and part Hal Ashby films that were huge inspirations. And this was sort of born from that.
One of the things that's so amazing visually about the film is you've got all these kind of period objects, and period cars and decor, and in what feels like a contemporary setting. What goes into putting all of that together?
Well, Chris was very focused on every visual, and our phenomenal production designer, Erin McGill, is here. It was really this idea of it being out of time, and also this notion that we cast away the things that were either beautifully designed or of value, and he just really wanted to go for a very handmade, handcrafted kind of feeling to the world.
Can you talk about the costume design as well? It's another...
Yeah, if you watch the film again, you'll see that one of June Del Rey's costumes actually has a lizard pattern on it. So when she comes back and tells the story of her mother, that red and white dress, the little print on it are lizards. Again, it was very intentional. There was homage to, old Hollywood and the glamour of that, and everyone's sort of love of cinema, and and just sort of this kind of idealized place of Hollywood where we come to hopefully make our dreams a reality.
Right. So this was shot on 35 millimeters, is that right?
It was, and I wish you guys would have seen it on 35 millimeter tonight. But
so a filmmaker comes to you and says, I want to shoot on 35. What is that like? Is that scary? Is that exciting as a producer?
I've shot on Super 70, so that doesn't scare me.
Okay.
When you make a bunch of films with Quentin Tarantino, you say, right, yes, I want to shoot on film. Look, film is really romantic, and it's gorgeous, and people look better, and the world looks better. It's not to take anything away from the incredible things that we can do with digital photography now. They're two different art forms. And there's a warmth and a depth and a texture and a romanticism that Chris really wanted, and he and Matt Jensen really got it in 35.
Right. And so in production terms, how does shooting on film differ to a project that's shot digitally?
Well, there's two parts of it. There's the image capture, and we didn't cut on film. We're not,
No movie
Nobody got no moviolas, though. When I started, we were still cutting on film. I think Reality Bites was the last movie that I cut, that I worked on that was cut on film. But I think, obviously we didn't print dailies because our final conforming wasn't going to be on 35, and then Chris made a print just because, you shot on film, why not have a print, right? It's gorgeous. But there's certain times when you need more light. There are a couple sequences that were shot digitally just because the film was extremely low budget film. We made this as a tier 1 movie in Los Angeles, and we were really lucky to have an incredible crew because people wanted to stay home and work. Oh. And so the night exterior scenes were shot digitally, but everything else was shot on film because we just couldn't afford the lighting required for that. But aside from that, if you handle it properly, there is a greater expense, but it's manageable. And it was a sacrifice that was baked in. When you make a film for a budget, there are choices that you have to make. And when you make those choices, the filmmaker decides what his or her priority are. And that was a huge priority, and we all supported his vision.
Right. You've worked on a lot of amazing productions over the years. You mentioned Reality Bites. When you're doing your work as a producer, what is the thing that makes a particular project or a particular director interesting when you decide to take it on?
I mean, I think a singular point of view and vision, you know, I mean, that's for me what I'm always drawn to. I've been really blessed. I've worked on a bunch of directorial debuts, from Ben Stiller's on Reality Bites to Andrew Nichols, on Gattaca, which I got to come to TIFF for the first time on. Garden State with Zach Braff, and this with Chris, Richard LaGravenese's directorial debut. I mean, I love that process. You know, sometimes they're writers, sometimes they're actors, sometimes they're just natural-born filmmakers, you know. And I think you listen. The hardest thing, I think, to accomplish, particularly as a writer-director, is a tricky tone, which this certainly is. And I think that's one of the things that was extraordinary, that Chris was able to maintain in his performance and in the performances out of the extraordinary cast.
Right. You mentioned a couple of other actor directors there. What kind of perspective do you feel like actor directors have that maybe just directors don't? Is there anything special that they can bring to it?
I mean, I think everybody directs for a different value, you know, and so even if it's two actor directors, they are interested in different things, you know. But I think there's a grounding in emotion, which also comes from writer-directors too. So it really, again, a filmmaker friend of mine once said, you know, every director directs for different value. And I think Chris was always really interested in grounding this and grounding Poolman in a kind of truthfulness, silliness, and earnestness in kind of the best way, not in a cynical, you know, melodramatic way.
Right. Okay. So we have time for some questions. If anyone has any, don't be shy. Yes, right here. Go ahead.
Hi. So, of course, you're the producer, so just as much as you know. But for the writing process, what did that look like? Like in terms of plotting out the mystery and the characters.
Yeah.
The question was, though I didn't write the movie and I wasn't there when they fully developed it, how did it work, plotting it out? So I know that, like Darren, Ian and Chris watched Chinatown a lot. And then they also really looked at, you know, how do you piece together that mystery, which if any of you have read the Chinatown book, it wasn't even that easy for those people who were making Chinatown. But then really it became, what's the underlying story of Darren's journey? And it's about a person trying to heal the world because he's really trying to heal himself. And, you know, the ways in which we encounter our found family from, you know, the family that either we were born into or abandoned us in Darren's case. So I think it really was, how do you, you know, as this person who cares for water, who's living in a desert of a soul, is searching for truth and answers, and they laid that onto the plot with the classic femme fatale and made sure that they had all the classic things, but really they started from character and built from there.
Do you have any idea where the Aaron Brockovich joke came from?
You know, I said to them, because I didn't put it in there, I said when I first met with Chris and Ian and Patty, you guys have to make this movie with me. I am still friends with Aaron Brockovich. I can get her. She was at one point, she was going to be in the last scene at City Hall, but her schedule didn't work out, and it's actually her handwriting on the letter.
Oh my God.
And they were also inspired by The Fisher King, which was one of my first associate producer credits. So that kind of tilting at windmills with a character who's sort of, you know, the wise fool was another inspiration to them.
Right. More questions? Yes, right here. Go ahead.
Are there any near disasters on set?
A question about any near disasters on set. Maybe we can frame that better and say what was the most challenging?
So the gold robe got stuck in the wheels of the moped.
Did you have a spare?
No, this is a $7 million movie. We didn't have a spare of anything. Let's see. The other thing that was really challenging, honestly, was, we were kind of headed into like Omicron the beginning of Omicron when we made the film. And probably we spent the entire contingency of the film on COVID costs. So we really had no safety net, and we were obviously super cautious with our cast. Thank God nobody in our cast or Chris or anybody got sick. But at one point, like after the July 4th holiday, I remember it was like the whole entire prop department was gone. By the time we got to the end of the movie, there was nobody left in the locations department. So, our last day, somebody showed up because it was at the mansion at the end. Somebody unlocked the gate for us, and from 10 feet away in a mask met the site rep. So that had a big impact on us. But aside from that, no, it was safe and contained, and we didn't have trailers or any of those trappings. So everyone had a room in the motel, and everybody hung out. We were there for a couple weeks shooting. So of the 22 days. So it became like the cast. It really became a family.
Question right here. Yes. Yeah, question about the casting process. No, that's okay.
He was asking about the casting process. No, I mean, look, Danny DeVito is my producing partner in Jersey Films for 12 years. And at the beginning, I suggested Danny for Jack. And Chris, that typewriter is his. He wrote typewritten letters to all the people he asked to play. And Danny enthusiastically was in very quickly. And after Danny was in, we went for Annette, and she said yes right away too. And Jennifer Jason Leigh is somebody that I'd also worked with and that Chris was a big fan of. He wanted somebody that, was a great actor, as she is, and also had been, there's that line in there where, I think it's still in there, where he says she had an arc on Melrose Place. And, the idea, Chris grew up in a family of working actors. And his grandmother, his, last place that she lived was the motion picture home. So he really saw the ups and downs. And even though he, scratched off a winning lottery ticket and is a movie star, he saw the impact on his family of when there were no residual checks or there were no jobs. And that was something he was really interested in. So people that had huge fame, like Jennifer Jason Leigh and his, obviously recent Oscar nominee and just had a long storied career. He loved her history as a teen star for Susan. And John Ortiz, I think he always had in mind. And we were so lucky with DeWanda.
Yeah. More questions? Yes, in the back there. Go ahead.
I was just kind of curious. So there's some similarities in the setting and main character.
There's definitely some Lebowski in there.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, was there an awareness of that, and an attempt to lean into it at all, or stay away from it?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit of both. I think there's huge love for the dude who doesn't love the dude, yeah, definitely that was a huge, I would say, Lebowski, Chinatown, obviously, Hal Ashby being there, Chauncey Gardner was an inspiration as well.
Can you talk about the motel pool location? How'd you guys find that? What was that like?
Aaron McGill, MVP, we had found another place and we thought we were all set, and they came back and they wanted so much money, and we were like, where are we going? We have nowhere to go. We can't go there. And she said, I've got a new idea. There's this motel in Pasadena, and you know how there are these motels that have turned into residential apartments? Well, she and Chris came up with a whole backstory that maybe Jack and Diane made some investments, and one of them was in this place. And when things didn't work out so well, they lived there, and Susan's the manager and lives there. And it's the kind of place that you drive by all the time in Los Angeles. And with the classic architecture and kidney-shaped pool, which was really important to Chris, and it just worked out phenomenally well.
Great. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions if anyone has any.
Really, thank you guys for hanging with us.
Yeah. Right there, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so watching this movie, it was like, as someone with ADHD, like I feel like so many of the characters have some sort of like ADHD or something, like going off on every single tangent at the same moment with each other, nobody knowing where the conversation is going. Was that on purpose, or was that just because you wanted to seem a little bit chaotic?
So a question about the frantic energy of all the characters. It felt a little like some of them had ADHD. Was that ever a part of the conversation? What went into the dynamics between them and
I think we didn't specifically speak about that, but we definitely talked about anxiety, and we definitely talked about the ways in which the pressure of the kind of too much with us world that we live in. I mean, I think you'll see it was very intentional. There's no cell phones in the movie. There's certain things that, are just not a part of it, that are a part of our modern world, because Darren wishes things were the way they were so that they were a little bit slower. So I wish he was here. I know he wishes he were here to answer that question for you, and Ian as well. So I hope that was helpful. But there definitely was discussion about, moving through life with a lot of anxiety.
were there many rehearsals or anything like that? Or was
I mean, there's about 2 weeks of rehearsals, on and off, like with different groups of people, and a read through and
And did everyone stick pretty close to the script? Was there any kind of improv or anything like that?
Not a ton, a little bit. I mean, some of actually that crazy story that Danny tells about the wizard started as an ad lib in rehearsals one day, and might have been a summer stock thing that might have happened to him. I don't know, or just a riff, because he did a lot of experimental theater. He was in La Mama in New York. So that grew out of it. There were some things that just evolved, but it was a very free, being an actor first. I think he just created a really collaborative environment for the whole cast, and they adored working with him and were there like great cheerleaders for him all the time. And that's something that I've really watched in a lot of the directorial debuts. It's a great thing for a new filmmaker to have actors that are really on their side to support them in that process. I mean, it was really, Ethan Hawke was really that for both Andrew Niccol and Gattaca, and was great for Ben Stiller as well. Danny certainly has been that for Richard LaGravenese and Chris and others. So it was they all were just squarely in his corner.
Well, Stacey, thank you so much
you
for
guys.
being here.
Thanks so much.
Let's hear it one more time for Poolman.